Alright, today we're going to change the brakes on the Jeep XJ, the front brakes. And the reason we're doing that is because last time I was in the mountains I was experiencing some brake fade. I'm going to show you why I think I was getting brake fade. So what I did, I decided to go with the AutoZone Finest, the Duralast Gold. These are OE grade semi-metallic pads, and which are pretty standard. But what's not standard are these high carbon formulation Duralast brake rotors. So if you take a look here, these say that they are high carbon for steel, delivers maximum heat dissipation, fully coated for superior rust protection. Now these are black coated. This black this coating here is going to obviously wear off. And advanced molecular structure to reduce noise. We're going to see about that, but they're not noisy anyway. And of course they're made in mainland. So, and this is why I believe I was not getting good stopping power. I already did one side. See the back of this rotor? I was not getting the full, even though the pads were good, I was not getting, full contact. Remember, I pulled this Jeep out of the woods for $500, and the reason why is because they had the brakes screwed up. And it was just an old set of pads that they had thrown in the back of the Jeep. It was the pads were new. So I just threw them on here and been really riding it like this ever since. But when I went up in the mountains last summer, I noticed the brakes were not very good. So I'm hoping that with these upgrades, we will see a little bit more improvement. So let's take this side off and see if I find the same. Yeah, the outer is not too bad on this. You can see I've got plenty of pad left, but on that passenger side, there was not a lot of contact on the back side. So when I pull this off, we'll see. And then with these new Duralast Gold high carbon brake rotors, let's hope we get a little bit better performance. So the first thing you're going to need is some 12mm bolts, sockets to take off two, this one here and then one on the bottom, and then just take your caliper and move it aside. These are actually the bolts that were stripped out that I had to retap when I first bought the Jeep. These bolts right here are the reason why I got this thing for $500. And once you take those bolts out, this caliper should come right out. Just like this. And then you might want to get a wire, or you can just kind of set it up here on this control arm, which is what I'm going to do. And let's see what this looks like on the back. Yeah, see, very similar. See that gouge right there? And you can see it just hasn't been really making full smooth contact. And while I'm under here, I'm going to go ahead and grease every joint that I can reach. A lot easier to get it when it's jacked up and no tires. Alright, then your new rotor just slides over. I like to use a lug nut to kind of hold it flush while I put the caliper back on. And you can see there's a lot of meat left on those calipers, on those brakes, but you know, when you put a brand new set of brake pads on a new rotor, they kind of mate perfectly, and you do not want to use old brake pads with new rotors. And this came with the Duralast Gold rotor. It talks about the Z-clad coating will wear off during the break-in period, so where the pads meet the rotor, it's going to become shiny, but the rest of it should stay. All non-braking surfaces remain protected after the break-in process. So the inner brake pad just pops out like this. You just pull it out, and the outer brake pad has two little knobs on there, so you got to like push them out and then slide it up. Now you need to pay attention to the brake pads because there is a left and a right version. The difference is, you see it's got a little notch out here, but it doesn't on this side. Same thing on the inner. So there is left and right. If you go to put them on the wrong side, these will not match up. Alright, so once you get the old pads off, you can either loosen the bleed screw right here, or what I normally do is I take the cap off of the master cylinder, and I just press the piston in, and that way it gives it some travel to go up into the system. And I use this little brake caliper press kit that I got from Harbor Freight a while back. You can rent these for free. You can really just use a C-clamp, but this makes easy work of it. So now that I've got the caliper piston pressed in, I'm going to shoot it with a little brake cleaner, clean everything off, and pop the pads in. And the installation is reversed. You just take the inner one, pop it in the caliper, like that. And the outer ones have these little bitty raised areas right there that go into this piece right here. So let me show you how that works. Basically, you just take this, push it down until it snaps in that little hole right there. And you will know when you got them in the holes correctly because it will mate flush right here. And of course, it's going to be flush there. And the next thing you do is just bring it on here and put the 2 bolts in. When you go to put that on, you want to make sure these little channels on the bottom of the brake pads right here fit right there. And another thing you got to make sure you do, these little bushings here that the bolts go through, you got to make sure that they're pushed all the way out of the way so they can fit over the rotor. And before you put your bolts back in, you want to see these flush on all 4. And that's really all there is to it. So I'm going to put the wheel on, take it for a road test, and I'll let y'all know how it turns out over the next couple days. There will be a brake bleeding process that I might have to show you because once you do that, it's going to be a little squishy on the brake pedal. And don't forget to use the proper torque specs for each bolt and nut in this project, including the lug nuts. You need to check a proper service manual to get those specifications. And in case you are interested, this is the caliper tool from Harbor Freight that I used to press those pistons in. And although I did not need this item, I thought it would be interesting to see it. These Duralast Gold pads come with a caliper abutment clips. It's basically a shim that keeps the it's the rails that your pads ride on are worn. These little shims kind of fill in the gap to keep them from rattling or I guess making noise. I didn't need that, mine aren't wore out, but in case you do, it does come with them. Okay, so I drove it around and I do feel a little clunking, so I'm going to try to put these little shims that came with it. It had anywhere from 0.10 of an inch to 0.25. I think I'm going to start with the 0.15 and see where that goes. And you want to lubricate the rails here where that runs. I'm going to spray some silicone on it for now, but it says use a silicone-based lubricant. I mean, a garage door lubricant, silicone-based, but you might can use some silicone grease. It might be better, but you don't want to put too much oil and grease because you don't want to build up dirt right there. So I'm going to put these little shims on there and then try it out. All right, shims are on. Time to put it back together. And as you can see, there is even where that zinc coating did come off, and this is just it flaked off a little bit around there, but it is definitely going to stay in there and be in the carbon steel. Let's hope it does the proper heat dissipation. So now we're ready to put this on. All right, after I did a few test runs yesterday, I keep getting this clicking noise, and what I think is happening is this is wore right here and right here where those pads ride. So I'm going to have to somehow fix this. I just welded a quick bead right here, and I'm going to grind it down to make it flat. Hopefully that'll work. So I'm testing it with this old pad. I see I welded it up. Now it's not all indented there. My top doesn't look as good, but now if it slides real smooth. It doesn't hang up. And then you see that's what them shims are for, so you don't have a lot of play like this. This side's pretty bad too. Look how wore that is right there. So I've got to weld something and grind it smooth. Alright, that's my ugly weld. Now we're going to grind it down. I didn't film the other welding and grinding of that because it's kind of boring, but so I had two problems. First one was the surface. The surface of both of the rotors were bad. It didn't make full contact. And the second issue was the slide area where the pads would rub against. There was a little indentation in one part of it that needed to be welded so it didn't make that clicking noise. So I fixed both of those, and it runs like a champ, stops like a champ, which is the main thing. So I'm this much closer to my 4,000 mile across country trip. Y'all have a great weekend.